What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Evans Garage. Today I'm going to be doing a little bit of maintenance on the rear driveline in Old Blue. So what I'm going to be doing is replacing the U-joints and the center carrier bearing. These come in the club cab trucks because there's a two-piece drive shaft that goes to the rear. So what happened was one of my U-joints started squeaking when I was on a road trip up to Comox. So with the rotation of the driveline, I noticed a pretty consistent squeak, and as a result of that, I'm going to replace that U-joint. It was the U-joint that was closest to the rear axle, but while I have the whole driveline out, I'm just going to replace all three U-joints, the carrier bearing with nice quality Spicer parts. These are the recommended, best quality that you can get. It's recommended to get the non-greasable spicers. Here's the part number on those. I'll also link it in the description box below. So 5-1410X. And then for the carrier bearing, here's the Spicer part number, 210866-1X. So I'll rip out the drive shaft in Old Blue, and then we'll bring them back in the shop. To change the U-joints, you really only need a vise, but what I got was I picked up this 12-ton press because I think I'm going to need the 12-ton press when I go to press out the old carrier bearing on the drive shaft.
I don't know what you want. Let's have a bit of fun till I downfall. My love, if you feel like I...
Okay, so now that I've got the drive shaft out of the truck, it was pretty easy to remove. There was just a strap with two small bolts on each side of the U-joint. That was at the back, and then there was another two straps at the front for the transfer case, and then there was just two bolts in the middle holding up the hanger bearing. So now that it's off, as suspected, the rear one is cooked a bit here. You can pull off the caps. These two ends seem to be okay, these two ends, but when I take the whole drive shaft and try to, you can hear that. So one of those is dry. So we'll take a look at that. Quite a bit of play in there once we take it out. So what we're going to have to do is just pull the clips out of each end, and then we can get it up on the press and then just press the U-joints out. And I'll replace these ones anyways. They seem okay, but I've got the spicers, the drive lines out now, so I'll do them. This doesn't seem too bad. Like the bearing, I just, he's spinning around and it sounds okay. And the rubber is not in terrible shape, but we'll see if I decide to replace that or not. I'll do a bit more comparing between the state of the rubber and the bearing between the new and the old. But since it's out and I already bought the part, I'll try and replace it.
Don't say you're on the run to the other side, my love.
Okay, so I just wanted to show my bad culprit here. You can see as I pulled that cap out, everything just kind of turned to dust. All the rust on the inside there and inside of the cap. So that was my squeaky U-joint. Okay, so I've got the propeller shaft apart here, the shorter shaft. Just take note, there's one large spline on here, so you don't have to mark it when you take it off. It only goes back on one way with the other shaft. So this comes apart, this metal piece comes off, and I've decided I'm going to replace this. The rubber is kind of wearing out in the center. The new one comes with two dust shields. Looks like this bigger one is going to replace the one on the back, and then this one at the front, I believe, goes like that. So we'll try and start to rip this one apart, and then we'll start to install the new one.
You say you wanna cry, but you never do. Sugar, there's a
Okay, so we got the old center bearing out. I removed the old dust shield. I've got the new dust shield, but it doesn't seem to be a press fit onto the drive shaft. So I think what I'm gonna have to do is put this on there and then go to my buddy's place and just tack it on a couple places around. I just feel like having it there loose wouldn't really be a good idea before I press on the bearing. So I think I'm gonna put this on, tack it in a couple spots, put this on, and then finally put this guy on that way. Just note when you're installing the center bearing, it's directional. It says front, so the front is towards the U-joint side of this propeller shaft, and the splines are pointing towards the back of the truck. So again, dust shield like that. I'm going to weld it to there, and then hanger bearing with front pointing towards that end. And then this guy, what I've determined is I can probably put this on here because it just sits onto the bearing itself, seats onto the bearing, and then I can press on that surface because I want to press onto the surface of the bearing and not the cage when I press this on the drive shaft, because I don't want to collapse the cage when I press it on. So I'm going to use that as a tool to install it, and then I'll probably have this end facing up towards the top of the press so I can push down on that while this gets pressed on. Okay, so I'm just going to show you the way how I'm pressing the new one on. So I've got the press at the top of the drive shaft, front pointing up, dust shield on here already. At the bottom I've got these two pieces of steel plates, and then you can see the dust shield. So the dust shield contacts directly on the inner bearing, so I'm pressing on the dust shield right onto the bearing, which should press it right onto the shaft. So I've got new bearing on, dust shield pressed all the way until I felt resistance, and now this rear shield, I'm going to hold it back and tack it in a couple spots. Alright, and to get these back in, I'm just going to do it reverse of the way that I took them out. So I'm going to pop one of the end caps from the outside and then slip in the U-joint and then press it up, and then pop in the other cap and press it down. And we've got to be very careful when we're putting those in that none of the needle bearings, like these little guys, fall out of place. So I've pressed in the U-joint to one side, placed on the copper snap rings. They're saying the copper is the most commonly used, and then these other two are thicker, so that way you can get better tolerances in your U-joints. So I'm going to try the copper, see how it fits, and if I need to change it, I'll change it, but you're supposed to keep the colors the same on opposite sides. So this side's in, I'll flip it, press it up against that snap ring, and then we'll put my other snap ring in. Okay, so I've got the dust shield welded on 4 spots around the drive shaft, and then I've got the U-joints on both sides of the other drive shaft, front and back. And now the last thing I'll do is throw some grease on here, and then get some new zip ties and put my boot on and put those two drive shafts back together. Alright, we're out on the final test drive here, testing out the U-joints and the center bearing, and everything is very smooth. I think I had a little bit of a driveline vibration before, and everything's nice and smooth now, so it's good to hear. Job well done on the driveline. If you're looking to do the same thing on your truck, hopefully this helps. Thanks for watching, guys. Cheers, and stay tuned for the next one.